Good afternoon to the three of you who are currently here. As is always the way, we never have that many here at the start of the session. So what we will do, as we always do, is we will wait until 5 minutes past the hour. So we'll wait a further 5 minutes, and then we will make a start then. So I will talk to you properly in 5 minutes. Okay then. So good afternoon to you. As is often the way these days, we have quite a small group to begin with. Maybe we will have some others joining us in a while, but as you've all taken the trouble to be here on time, we will make a start. Today's session is, once again, it's a little bit different to some of the other sessions that we've run. And to be honest with you, today's session is very much going to be driven by you, in respect of what I want to do, and it is once again looking at assignment 712 on strategic human resource planning, not looking at any of the other assignments, because the only one I've got sight of today is 712. The others I haven't prepared, looked at, or anything. So looking at the strategic human resource planning assignment that we've been talking about over the last, well, not 3 weeks because we had a week off last week, but 3 times in the last 4 weeks. I want you to really just talk to me. Let me know, are there any specific, well, not really specific, just sort of general areas in terms of this assignment that you have struggled with? Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be looking at things like I have struggled with task 1, or I've struggled with assessment criteria 3.2 in task 3, or whatever. As relevant is I'm struggling with the word count. As relevant is I can you go through sort of Harvard referencing again, because I'm not so sure on that, or can you give me some guidance on where I can find some resources, because I'm struggling to find resources. So really, today's session is very much to be run by you. If you are comfortable with all areas of the assignment, that's great. I'd be really, really pleased to hear that, because if that's the case, then you never know, you may have some useful insights that you could share with your colleagues. So it will take as long as it needs to take. I am here, and I will be here for the next 2 hours. Whether I have anyone to talk to in half an hour or so is a completely different question, but I will be here. So if you want to just talk to me one-on-one, you could sort of leave and then come back in a bit, or we can put it all out there in the group. To be honest, it is 100%, as I say, down to you. It's your opportunity to discuss any specific areas of assignment 712 that you've found challenging, that you've struggled with. And like I said, it's not just about the task. Looking at things like, I'm struggling to find support material. I'm struggling to control my word count, or even meet the word count, or whatever. All of those are as valid. So to be honest, over to you. If you've got any questions, any observations, or whatever, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask the question. Or if you could also, as you know, we've always operated this way. You can either take yourself off mute and ask a specific question, or you can just put something in chat. I don't mind how you do it, but like I said, it's over to you now, really, for you to just sort of lead the session, looking at the areas you want to look at.
Hi.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm good. I have faced a problem with plagiarism report.
Yes.
Yes, I have contacted Turnitin.
Yeah.
They told me that I couldn't make an account. It should be from the institution.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't upload my assignment without it. And the institution, I asked them many times and they didn't give me anything yet.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you're talking to Liverpool colleges regarding that? Yep.
Yes, I have sent on the group and they didn't reply.
Right. I have no ability to do anything about that in terms of sort out your account. But what I can do is I can actually contact them on your behalf to say you has not been able. Sorry, I'm writing this down because otherwise I will have forgotten.
They have sent a link for the UniCheck, and Turnitin told me that UniCheck was bought. Okay, and they don't issue any account anymore. So this is a useless link.
So, sorry, if you could just repeat that for me, just so I make sure I got that. So, what, you're not able to set up an account on Turnitin?
Yeah, no. First, the college sent a link for UniCheck. So when I have tried to use it, Turnitin contacted me and said that they bought UniCheck from Isle, and that they don't issue any account on UniCheck anymore.
Right.
Okay. So, and if I want an account to use on Turnitin, the institution should have one and then give me the username and password, because they don't issue anything for individuals.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, hang on. Okay. As I said, there is. So Nancy's also facing that problem. No worries. I will put your name on here as well, Nancy, because otherwise I will have forgotten by Monday. I'll just end up saying, and so is somebody else, but that won't help at all. Oh, right. And Ferdy. Okay. Okay. I think it might be easier to just ask, is anybody not having this problem?
Yeah, so, I think for all, because how can they make plagiarism?
Exactly. Yeah, I can see that if you have a situation where only institutes can have an account and individuals can't set up an account, then it's obviously going to be an issue for everybody. As I said, sadly, I don't have any ability to personally resolve this, but what I do have, I have now made a note of everything that you have talked about, and I will contact the college myself to make sure that they are aware of that, and I can go through not putting it in a group chat. I can actually contact people in person and hopefully get it resolved, because the big thing is, how if you are not able to submit it via the Turnitin resource, you are, first of all, you're not going to know whether or not you have excess plagiarism, and secondly, and here I'm making an assumption based on when I've done qualifications through universities, it's the way in which you do submit the material. You don't submit it direct to the college, you submit it through Turnitin. So I will take that up with them so that they are aware of the situation, and hopefully we will be able to get that situation resolved for you, because then you'll obviously have that challenge taken out of the equation. Can I just ask, is that only something that has happened recently, or is it an issue that has been running on with other assignments as well?
Yes, we were asking for this for a while, since we were asking since summer for the link or the account, and recently we got a link, but it was useless. There was no account. You
got the link through to this UniCheck thing, which doesn't exist, which is now being shut down. Right, no problem. Okay, well, as I said, all I can do is I can pass that on. I can raise it as a concern, and hopefully I will be able to get somebody to attend to it. Because, yeah, if you're not able to submit your assignments, then it doesn't matter, how good your assignment is. You don't know because you can't submit it.
I think that I can't submit it without the report.
Yeah. generally speaking, that will be the way. So it's actually stalling the entire process. So absolutely, as I said, I can't do anything myself, but what I can do is I can do everything in my power to bring it to the attention of the college to try to get it resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm not making any promises, but all I can say is I can try and use the contacts I've got to get it through to them. So hopefully that will be resolved, because it does actually make it kind of difficult for you to not be able. Yeah, Danny has put you can use Grammarly. You can use Grammarly, but I don't. Grammarly will give you an element of a report, but I don't think it is as widely recognized as things like Turnitin, which are properly targeted for academic writing. So Grammarly is useful as a resource for you to look at, but it doesn't do it instead. I don't believe. I don't think it ticks the right boxes for the college. That's as I understand it. That's from my own perception. So we obviously have one fairly significant challenge in respect of you're not able to submit your assignments because of this challenge that you're currently facing. In terms of content for the assignment, and again, as I've said, I'm only going to be looking at assignment 712, Strategic Human Resource Planning today. If you're struggling with any of the other assignments, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to give you any guidance on that today. Are there any other problem areas for any of you? Any areas you've particularly struggled with in this assignment that you want to sort of put up for discussion today? You should have joined about 5 minutes earlier, Saeed, because we've just covered that one off. I'm not personally able to deal with that one, but from what has been said, from Wafa raised it, saying that you're not able to set up an account for yourselves, and she's put it into group chat but not had a reply. What I've said I will do is I think I've captured all of the details. I will contact the college personally myself, because I've got some so I can contact outside of the group chat, and hopefully we can try to get that resolved. So yeah, we're not being dismissive, Saeed, but we're ahead of the game on that one. We're already ahead of you. So in terms of the actual, no problem, don't thank me, one of your colleagues raised it. So all I can do is take it back through the channels that I have access to. In terms of any other specific areas, do any of you have any challenges, for example, in areas like being able to find information from other websites to use as sources, etc., or is that one that you are feeling relatively comfortable with now?
Can I ask which chapter or which assignment
we are
talking about?
We are talking
or
about
in general.
That we're specifically talking about assignment 712, which is the Strategic Human Resource Planning one. But to be honest with you, if we start looking at when you're finding additional source material, the basic principles of what I will talk about would apply to any assignment, regardless of the topic, because it will be the same principles that you go through. In terms of if we start looking at areas of the content that we've struggled with, I would only be looking at assignment 712. So we're not looking. Sorry, I've just got distracted by a message that came in. I'll come back to your message in a sec there, Saeed. Yeah, as I said, I'm only looking at 712. I'm not looking at any other assignment topics today. So the message that just came through from Saeed, he would like to talk about the theory that we will use at each assignment and how to charge it. When you say how to charge it, could you? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by how to charge it, Saeed. Would you be kind enough to just clarify what you mean by that? Yeah, I'm very happy to start going into the theories. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I need to now find something I've got filed away on my laptop. How to use it, right? How to use it at each point. Sorry, I was looking for something. Okay.
He means submit it, not charge it. Submit it.
Yeah, I've got that now. Yeah. The first assignment is I don't know what your first assignment is that you were actually given to submit, Dania, but what I am looking at today is only in relation to 712. I'm not looking at 708. 708, I'm not even sure off the top of my head which one it is, but 708 is, yeah, 708 is strategic marketing. And I can certainly tell you straight away, I would never be able to provide any assistance to you in relation to marketing. It is not my field of expertise at all. So we're very much looking at 712, not 718. So in terms of what theories should we be looking at using? Okay, if we look at task number 1, what you are looking at here is developing an understanding of the role of a human resource function. So in terms of actual theories, I would say there probably aren't any specific theories that you would want to be looking at. What you do want to start thinking about is how, you want to just use an understanding of things like, how does what does a human resource function do? A human resource function is not just about recruitment, making sure annual appraisals are done, and disciplining I'm struggling with the word, disciplining employees when they do something that they shouldn't do. Human resources is about far more than that. Human resources looks at any number of different areas. So what we need to start thinking about is, okay, how does, or what is the role that human resources play in areas such as employee engagement? So how does it make sure that we are a competitive organization that people want to work for? Because I think, there's a lot more to it than just recruiting people. If you look at things like, pay and benefits, those are, generally speaking, things that fall inside the remit of a human resource function. And again, this will depend on the country that you are working in. But just to use as an example, if you work in the USA, if you look at benefits, healthcare is a huge benefit. It's a huge thing in the States. They only have private healthcare. They do not have any state provided healthcare. So the healthcare provision, whether it is for the individual, whether it is for the individual and immediate family, whether it is for the individual partner and children, these becomes huge issues that help to engage the employees. People will want to work for people who look after them. So it's not just about recruiting people, it's about understanding how the human resource function helps keep people in the organization. What do we have as retention processes. So what do we have that are the added extras that make our people want to work for us? We also need to look at, within task number 1, it does talk about projecting future human resource needs to avoid skill shortages and vacuums. Now, this is a really, really important area, and I know I've touched on this previously. In organizations, all organizations will have an organizational strategy. We all know that. We've looked at those kind of areas. A strategy will be based on whether they've done a SWOT analysis, whether they've done a PESTEL analysis, whether they've looked at Porter's 5 forces, whatever strategic models they have used. And by the way, I would always recommend don't just use one of those models, use them in combination. But that's a different discussion. The big thing is most organizations tend to invest a lot of time in developing their organizational strategy. What they don't do is involve the human resource function in devising a human resource strategy. So the human resource strategy, as it talks about in the second paragraph of task 1, gap analysis. Where are we now? Where do we need to be? Dependent, of course, on the nature of your organization, but it could be that in order to realize your business strategy, you need to acquire sources of knowledge in your business that you don't currently have. Now, it could be you need to have people working in your organization who have experience of working multiculturally or working in a global organization. It could be you could be wanting to have people who have an awareness of different technologies or opening up different markets or whatever it is. But what is the skills gap that you have between the skills you currently have and the skills that you need to deliver on your business strategy? So that is a really important role that HR play. They need to be consulted, they need to be involved. They don't just suddenly need to be told, right, we need 100 people with these awarenesses or these skills or whatever. So they need to know where is the business going, what skills the business needs for the future, and then they need to put in a plan to how are they going to meet those skills. Are we going to look at developing the people we've got, upskilling them? Are we going to look at acquiring another organization to buy the, if you like, to go out and buy the skills? Or are we looking to recruit them? And if we're looking to recruit them, what is our USP, unique selling point as a business, that's going to make people want to come and work for us? It could be, if you're in a very technical environment, you may want to set up a link with some particular business schools or some technology institutes or any of these kind of areas. That there isn't a right or a wrong thing. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Shoru, if I've mispronounced it, I do apologize. You have your hand up. Please feel free to interrupt.
Yeah. You were talking about AC 1.1, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You are talking about the skills that the company required to accomplish some missions, right?
The crucial thing is when we're talking about in task 1, it talks about projecting future human resource needs. So yes, it is about knowing what you currently have, but it's also, sorry. Yep.
Is it about how do we know what we need, or what, like, you're talking about the strategy to know how, what do you need?
Yes.
And how to get it, right?
Yes. The HR needs to understand what the strategy of the business is. What are the business plans? Because then it can understand, have we got the resource that we need to deliver it? Have we got the skills we need to deliver it? Those kind of areas.
Got it. So can we find this type of strategies on the study material, or like we have to search about it?
In terms of developing organizational strategy, that is definitely covered in the materials. If we look at, so just jumping in, you have things like we had the module on strategic planning, we had the modules on strategies for growth. There was also, where was the other one? The external operating environment. We'll also look at that, as would the business plan. So in those four, all of them will in some areas be looking at organizational strategy and how to set it. What you don't have is any specific learning materials provided by the college that look at human resource planning or human resource strategy. So what you do need to do is to develop an understanding of the role played by human resources. What is the human resource planning cycle? And if you just Google human resource planning cycle in Google, you will get plenty of material in there that will be of use and will give you guidance on some of the areas that you need to cover. So hello, someone started to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
When I read my study materials, I found a lot of links in the pages.
Yes.
When I opened these links, I found confusing and this data on my thoughts. Can I leave it link? Because I don't have thoughts or thinking about it.
The crucial thing is the study material you are provided with will outline the core principles. The links will give you additional information. But one of you asked a few weeks back, do I need to do any additional research myself, or can I just use the study material to write my assignments? And my response was, if you only use the study material, I would be surprised if you cover the topics in sufficient depth. So even just using the study material and the links, I don't think there is enough there. You need to go out and do some additional work. Now, for example, what is the role of a human resource function? What is what is the role of HR planning? There isn't really very much in the materials. I'll come back to that question, Ferdy. So now I've lost my train of thought. So yeah, if you want material, another one, if we look at organizational culture, for example, which you look at in task 3, how does culture impact on recruitment and retention? You will not find anything in your resource material on that. So you need to go out and conduct your own research. The one thing you always need to consider with these qualifications is what level is this qualification targeting? And this sits on the framework at the same level as a master's degree. So therefore, if you stop and think about it, if you were completing a master's degree, would you expect to only have to read one book? And I would say no, you would not expect to only have to read one book. You would expect to do your own research. So you do need to do your own research. You will find some of the links that are in the material take you through to articles that actually just end up confusing you. I found that as well. Some of them also, I will tell you, the links don't work. They take you through to an article that no longer exists. But it doesn't mean that you only use those links. You need to go out and do your own research as well. So coming back to the question that Fadi asked, can I submit my assignment before finishing its material? Well, asking that question, do you mean before reading all of the material that the college provide? So could you just clarify, is that what you mean by that question? No. So so sorry, I mean before passing the exam.
Yes, they think there's no problem.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. As I understand it, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have your hand up. Is it still up from before, or have you raised your hand again?
No, it's not. It's about the task 1
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
They are saying critically assess the strategic importance of current future. So they want us to assess the importance.
Yes.
Like I'm not talking about the strategy, just talking about how important to have a strategy for current and the future HR requirements.
The crucial thing here, critically assess the strategic importance of current, future, and anticipated HR requirements. What that is saying is you need to critically explain the role that the HR function plays in delivering the strategy of the business. Because the strategic importance of current, future, and anticipated HR requirements, if you don't have the human resource strategy to support your organizational strategy, you won't be able to deliver it. Because whatever you're trying to achieve in your organization is delivered by people. So you need to make sure you've got the right people with the right skills, the right quantity, etc., etc. So what it's looking at is how, basically, to put very, very simply, how does HR help the business deliver strategy? That is basically what it's asking you.
Yeah, it's great.
There's one of the stories I will often tell about some time I spent with an organization where when I said, and I ended up saying to them, I think your business strategy is absolutely brilliant, but you will never succeed because you don't have a people strategy. You haven't identified how you're going to deliver it. You have to have both.
But in 1.2, analyze how HR planning impacts on the strategic plan. It looks like the same.
No, not quite, because if you like, the first one is about how does HR help to deliver the strategic plan. The second one is how does HR help in the creation of the strategic plan. Do you get the subtle difference?
No.
Right. The first one is very much about looking at how are we going to get the human resource needs, the people basically, to deliver it. The second bit is about how does HR influence the setting of the plan. So, for example, in the second one, you are looking at, as the one thing it talks about, the full human resource planning cycle. And if you Google that, if you just give me 2 seconds, I'm going to share my screen with you. Go back to here. If you Google the HR planning cycle, you will be able to come across something not unlike this, which is the human resource planning cycle. So And it's a very straightforward planning cycle. It's no different to what you would do. Analyze the objectives. What have you got? Forecast demand, estimate what you're going to need, get a plan, implement the plan, and then actually monitor the plan, have a look at it, and feedback, did it deliver? So what you're looking at is understanding how human resources actually contributes to the plan.
It's a part of the plan.
How does it help to deliver to achieving, or sorry, to setting the strategy?
It's like the planning of HR, like before doing anything, how to plan
Yes, if
the
you like,
human resources.
yeah, 1.1 is about actually doing it. 1.2 is about planning it.
Like, for example, I have an HR plan, which tells me that I cannot acquire some skills from some employees, so my strategic plan will be affected because my HR plan. Is it right?
Yes, your strategy will definitely be affected. If you cannot access the skills, then you cannot deliver the plan.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Sorry, so there have been lots of messages coming through in the chat. What have we got? Shah asked, any exam? Yes, I'm guessing you're referring back to the question from Fadi about, can you put your assignment through before finishing the material, the exam? Yes. Dania asks, in the platform section of the study material. Not sure what you mean by that. Well, I won't say it's a question. It's more of a statement, Dania. So I'm not sure if you could clarify what you mean. Fadi's starting to talk about talent management, retention, good employees. That is a crucial bit of HR strategy. How do, again, I don't know how much of an issue you are having where in the countries that you are based with what is called the Great Resignation, where they found that people returning to the offices after 2 years of working from home, there's a significant increase in the number of people who are leaving jobs. Mainly because while they've been working at home, they haven't been leaving jobs. So what we're actually getting is it's not as bad as it looks, because what we're getting is 3 years worth of staff turnover in one go. So it looks a lot worse than it is. But the best organizations have two things in place. One, they have a retention strategy. They have identified who are their key employees. It's not saying that some employees don't matter, but there are some employees. Now, it could be due to specific experience, it could be due to specific relationships, it could be due to any number of factors, but there are some absolutely crucial employees in every organization. And the really good organizations have an idea of how they are going to keep those employees, not waiting until those employees leave and then throwing more money at them to try to get them to stay, which is what a lot of short-sighted organizations do. So how do they make sure they are retaining good employees? And the other one you mentioned there, Fadi, is talent management. Talent management is incredibly important. Do we actually look at our people, and do we identify people with talent, and do we develop them? Do we, as an example, know that if a manager leaves, we have two people who could potentially replace them? They won't be 100% ready, but have we got people with the potential to replace them? Not we have a manager leaves and then we start thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do to replace this person? So talent management is about thinking towards the future. It's about developing the talent. Well, first of all, it's about attracting the talent, and then it is about developing and retaining the talent. Invest in talented people to create future leaders. Absolutely. As you all know, I do like reading books. I've talked about this on many occasions. I was reading something the other day, and it really, really struck with me. It said that the most effective leaders don't just focus on having followers. The truly effective leaders focus on developing more leaders for the organization. So yeah, that point that you've made there, Fadi, is absolutely spot on. It's about, yeah, investing in talented people to create future leaders, potential successors. I've always wanted, I do, if you like, my day job away from doing these sort of tutoring sessions, which I also do, is delivering training in leadership and management areas, particularly. And one of the questions I always ask people is, what is the number one responsibility of a manager? And they will always talk about, I will always get the response of, it's about delivering budget, it's about having high morale, it's about achieving objectives. And all of those things are incredibly important. Of course, you want to actually achieve what you set out to achieve. But to me, I believe the number one responsibility of a manager is to enable their people to be the best that they can be. So investing in talented people to create the future successors for the organization. But that is what human resources is there to do. They are there to do that by having processes in place. I mean, you will come across organizations who have really in-depth, detailed talent management processes. If you want to know more about talent management, if you were to Google talent management and the 9-box grid, that will give you an insight into how a lot of organizations identify and develop the talent in their business. It's a process that is used in a number of very, very successful organizations, where they will probably every 6 months look at every single employee, and it's done by the managers in consultation with other people who know their people, and they will look at their people who's reached their full potential, is ready for promotion, who isn't ready but could be ready in 6 months, and so on and so on and so on. So if you want to know more about how human resources can help to develop a business to avoid skill shortages and vacuums, which is one of the things it talks about, Google talent management and the 9-box grid. So in terms of, again, going back to the original question that was asked by Said when he started asking about what models and theories specifically, there aren't really any specific models I would look at in relation to task one. But as I did say, I do think it's very, very useful to Google human resource planning cycle. That will give you one model that gives you a sort of framework to cover off. Any other questions, any other concerns, areas that you've struggled with on task one? Because if there aren't, we can move on to task two. So I'll just give you a second.
Professor, please.
Yeah, go on.
When I submit my first assignments and it's failed, what's happened after that?
It's a very good question, Dania, that I do not know the answer to because I am not involved in that process. However,
can I answer?
Of course you can. If you know the answer, please feel free.
Oh, I'm sorry for interruption. I think you can resubmit it. You have to adjust it. They will tell you why you failed, and you will fix it. Then you will resubmit it, but you have to pay like £50.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is actually pretty much how I would expect. What the way I operate with some of the, I do marking, assessing for some other colleges, not here, but for other colleges, and I have also obviously done qualifications myself. And what happens is you submit an assignment through the online process, and generally, when I'm doing the marking, dependent on the workload that I have on at the time, I will try to get them marked and returned with feedback within 2 weeks of submission. That's what I try to do. I don't always manage it, but I certainly try to do it within 2 weeks, because I think it's important to try to get them back as quick as possible. And again, when I was doing my master's degree, generally speaking, it was 2 to 3 weeks. You would get it back. You will always get, or should always get, some feedback from the assessor.
Actually, for me, it took like more than 1 month.
Yeah, this is it. I'm just saying that's how I try to do it. Different colleges work in different ways. I just think it's kind of useful to get it back.
They took a lot of time, actually.
Like I say, some people do, some people don't. But anyway, so you should always get feedback. If you pass, you get feedback because you want to know which bits you've done well, which bits you can improve. If you have not passed first time, absolutely, you should get detail back of saying, these are the areas that you need to review and resubmit. And they should also tell you what is wrong, not just say, you need to review task 1 and resubmit it, because that doesn't tell you what you need to review in it. You would need to, I would be telling somebody, you have not looked at, what the role is of human resources. You have not looked at, skill shortages as examples, because that then tells them those are the areas that they need to look at. So you should get feedback that tells you, yes, you have passed this assignment, or no, you have not passed this assignment. If you get feedback that you have passed, it should tell you what was good about it, what you could do better next time. If you have not succeeded, you should be told, these are the areas you need to review, and these are the reasons that they were not to standard. So that is what I would expect you to be told when you receive the feedback. As I said, I always try to, I try to do it within 2 weeks. That doesn't make me better than other people. It just could just be that I have less workload than the other people. Yeah, by the sound of it, they're taking slightly longer, but that's how it is. Task 2. If there's nothing else on task 1, let's have a quick look at task 2. Things to think about, some areas. One of the challenges here is you need to do some investigation. Oh, something's coming to chat. Oh, sorry. Something's coming to chat, which I just need to download and then have a look at. Oh, this is useful. A copy of the induction document
Can we see it?
for Liverpool colleges. Absolutely. Give me 2 seconds. Let me share my screen.
We can look to the slide how to.
Right. Okay, so what we have here is a copy of, as it says, the new students induction from Liverpool colleges. So yeah, various pointers here. You've satisfied the requirements. You've received an acceptance welcome letter. You've paid your first payment. You've received an invoice. You've been made aware of available dates. Right, no problem. They are accredited by qualify or qualifi, whichever it is. Oh, someone put something in chat. Look to the last slide. Okay, hang on. Oh. I'm guessing it's not that one you mean by the last slide. Right, here we go. Here, this, hopefully this will, yeah. So if the assignment process, yep, this one, brilliant. So what we get here is you submit your assignment to the assessor. If it passes, it then goes to the internal verifier, and then once it passes them, it goes to the external verifier. Now, basically, just to very quickly explain, what tends to happen in most organizations is you will have somebody who works within the organization who needs to check consistency, because what you will find in a lot of organizations is you have a number of different people marking. So, for example, I know full well that with one of the clients I work with, there are 4 of us who conduct marking to them on behalf of them. They need to ensure that all 4 of us are working to the same standard, that one is not awarding a pass where they know somebody else would not, would say that needs to be resubmitted. So the internal verifier, that is their role, to make sure there is consistency. And then it goes to an external verifier, and the external verifier is there to ensure that the assessor and the internal verifier are working correctly against the standards of the awarding body. So those are what those 2 checks are. So as a simple rule, the assessor marks it, the internal verifier will then review the marking to ensure it is in line with what other assessors are marking, and then the external verifier will review it to make sure that it is in line with what are the actual requirements for the qualification. And if you just run all the way along the top here, you then get your certificate. If, however, when you first put it in, it is not to standard, you have to resubmit it, and as it says here, there is a fee of £50 to meet the resubmission, for the resubmission to be marked. If the resubmission is then sufficient, it goes to the internal verifier, who carries out the process as before. Once the internal verifier signs it off, it goes to the external verifier, so the same process. If it has to be resubmitted a second time, there is a further fee of £50. There aren't any arrows, but I would guess it then follows the same route as the first resubmission. I would guess that you can only have 2 resubmissions. Again, we have similar with a number of the other clients I work with. We do not allow people to continually resubmit, because they are given guidance as to why they haven't resubmitted, or why they've got to resubmit. And if they've had to resubmit twice, a third time shows that they're not paying attention to the information that they've been given. Now, if it's approved by the internal verifier, there are occasions where an internal verifier won't approve it and it will go back for resubmission, but they are few and far between. And not only that, that brings up issues in relation to the quality of the assessors. Sometimes you will find external verifiers will say that the college or the markers or the assessors or whoever it is are not correctly applying the standards required of the college. So therefore you have to resubmit. If that is the case, if it is has to be resubmitted after review from the external verifier, you will see here there is no payment due to you or due from you. The college will bear the fees for resubmission, because the issues are not with you specifically necessarily. You know, the initial assessor hadn't picked it up, the internal verifier hadn't picked it up, so those are not your problems, as it were.
Mhm. Can we go to
Fair
the
enough. I've just received a message that has come through saying we have asked. They tell us you can submit many times. Fair enough. Then ignore it when I said it. That means only twice. Guessing. Yeah, different colleges have different rules. Simple as that. So you can complete resubmit, but in my opinion, if you are addressing what they tell you, you shouldn't have to keep resubmitting it. But that's just my opinion. So hopefully that then answers the question. So let me just what's happened here? Let's stop screen sharing. So any other questions about that element of the process? Because hopefully we have now dealt with the process and have managed to answer those questions. Excellent, thank you. I have a no. I have one no. I will take that. Okay, task 2. It's a business profit process. Yeah, I think you might be right. But having said that, one thing I do know is awarding bodies tend to charge you for resubmission as well. So, yeah, somebody somewhere is making money in these things, just not us.
the teacher? They told us the first trial for you, like if you failed from the first try or one of your assignments got refused, you won't pay for the first time.
Fair enough. If that's what they've told you, let me just have a look.
Yeah, but they did not commit with this. These days, they are saying that no, they changed the policy, and you have to pay even for the first time. I was going to, I was going to stop this master just because of this recall, because it means that they don't stick with what they say. I don't know. I didn't like this, actually.
I can't, again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to avoid it. I can't comment because I was aware of anything to do with any of that.
I know it's not,
and-
you cannot say, but like, I even tried to reach that thing to the person in charge, but I don't think that they really care about our opinions. When you say something, you have to stick with it.
Well, like I say, I can't comment because I all I have is what I have seen on this presentation that I was sent just now. This is the first time I have seen anything, and it just says if a student fails to satisfy the requirements of an assessment by having not yet achieved, they will be charged a £50 resubmission fee. So that I can't say that it previously said otherwise because I don't know. What it does say here, actually, which is an important one to make, the student is allowed as many attempts as necessary to achieve the pass. So I can therefore, say that my observation was wrong there. So I have been asked a question by Isan for assessment criteria. Do we use the legal requirements of our own country? Yes. I would absolutely recommend that if you are in Jordan or you are in Lebanon or you are in Palestine or whatever country you are in, the 4 HR laws that you select are HR laws that are relevant to your country, because otherwise, if you start looking at, for example, if you start looking at UK legislation, it's going to be very difficult for you to, if looking at assessment criteria 2.1, evaluate the current legal requirements influencing an HR plan, because you're actually using pieces of law that don't influence the plan. So you need to make sure that you look at the legislation, yes, absolutely, related to the company you are studying on your field or assignment. Absolutely, Said. So if you are, you are based in, you are based in, you are looking at a company in UAE, for example, you at the legislation of UAE. So it's about the company that you are looking at. Yeah. So in terms of task 2, there are really no models, theories to apply. What you need to look at is you need to look at 4 specific laws and how do they influence your HR plan. So as an example, it could be that you are looking at things like, minimum wage. You need to look at how can you ensure you have sufficient revenue in your organization to make sure that you are able to pay minimum wage, just as off the top of my head. You could be, and again, I don't know if this is still law. I know this was a law last time I was out in Saudi. And again, I don't know if any of you are based in Saudi, but they used to have, I think it was called Saudiization, where you had to employ a certain percentage of Saudi nationals because there were so many expats coming in, to Saudi, just so they could get, earn a lot of money by not paying tax for a few years. So how does something like that impact on your organization? How does it impact on your recruitment process? Because this is a big thing. Second bit of it talks about describe a process for recruitment and selection of new staff that complies with current legislation. Well, I would give you a bit of guidance there that whatever HR laws you look at, certainly make sure 2 of them are relevant to recruitment and selection. So they could be, laws against discrimination, not discriminate against people on the grounds of nationality, religion, gender, whatever whatever your local legislations are. So how do you make sure that they are used, they are followed, they are understood by people carrying out recruitment and selection for your business? So you need to understand what laws impact on your HR strategy and how they impact on recruitment and selection, and they will all be specifically relevant to the country in which your organization that you are looking at is based. You can either get that information by, if you don't know it already, of course, but you can either get it by Google. The only challenge with Googling it is what you tend to get when you Google things is you can get copies of the actual legislation, and actual legislation is not written in language that normal people such as you and I would ever speak or understand. We read it and we think, I don't even know what that means. So you could get, but you can find some very useful simple guides to legislation. The other option you always have is, in your own organization, go and ask someone in your HR department. They will definitely be in a position to be able to tell you, because if they can't tell you, then they can't be doing their job properly because they don't know what the law is. So that covers off task 2. My glass of water is empty. Can we just take 5 minutes? Take a very quick 5-minute break. I'll be back in 5 minutes at 15 minutes past the hour. So 15 minutes past 4 for me. So I think that's 15 minutes past 6 for you. But anyway, 5 minutes. I'll be back with a full glass of water and we will look at task number 3. Task number 3, there are some models and things to look at. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Okay then. So we are now back to look at the final task and to give you some just little bits of guidance on the final one, and again looking at what models maybe can you start thinking about. And this one is, there are two very, very specific individuals who are very, very well known in the fields of organizational culture. And for both of them, you will need to Google to find out information about them. The first one, and I will put these in chat. The first one is Charles Handy, Handy. And Charles Handy's model of organizational culture, very, very well known. He's a very respected author who has done a lot of work on organizational culture. So he's the first one that I would certainly recommend that you have a look at. And the second one is, I'll come back to that in a sec, Dania. Oh, help if I spelt it correctly. Edgar Schein, Schein. Dania, you've just put 2 question marks. Well, which bit are you struggling with? Did you not hear the first bit of what I said? Both of these, when we look in task 3, what do I mean? Right. When you look at task 3, it just says, describe what is meant by organizational culture. And identify key factors of organizational culture which may affect the recruitment and retention of staff. This is the one area of this assignment where you will want to look at some very specific theories or models to support what you are putting. So if you want to get an understanding of what is meant by organizational culture, probably the two best known writers on the subject of organizational culture are Charles Handy and Edgar Schein. And those are the 2 names that I have just put into chat for you. For both of them, to enable you to actually describe what is meant by organizational culture, if you decide to refer to one or other of those models, and I would certainly recommend you refer to at least one of them, you would need to go into Google and do a search on either Charles Handy organizational culture or Edgar Schein organizational culture, because the resource material that you get from the college does not include information that I'm aware of on either of them, but they are possibly the 2 best known authors on the subject. So they will give you a really good insight, some really useful support material on organizational culture, and that will also help you to identify how organizational culture could affect recruitment and retention of staff. If you understand organizational culture, it then falls out of it how it particularly impacts on retention of staff. There are some really interesting concepts to think about, and there is a very, very simple concept. This is not a model that's used by anyone, but it's a very widely held view, is that people join organizations, but they leave managers. And this is the crucial thing. The culture of an organization is not necessarily what the organization says is its culture or its values code or whatever. It is about the behavior of the people in the organization. So the way in which the managers behave towards their staff will directly influence the culture of the organization. So, like I said, people join organizations, but they leave managers. They also stay with managers. And there is this age-old, I'm sure you've all heard the expression, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And it's one of those things where there isn't a right answer to that question, because it was to do with evolution, I think. But anyway, there's a similar one in relation to organizational culture, and the unanswerable question is, does organizational culture influence management style, or does management style influence organizational culture? And the answer is yes, because it does work in both ways. So retention is very much impacted by the culture of the organization. Recruitment can be influenced by organizational culture, in respect of some organizations have negative reputations. So I would certainly say that organization culture does affect recruitment, but it has a bigger impact on retention. Positive and negative aspects of culture. I can't tell you what the positive and negative aspects are of an organizational culture. If I was answering this question, I would look to establish what is meant by organizational culture as a concept. I would then start talking about the organization in which I worked. And only once I do that am I then in a position to start outlining what are the positive aspects of the culture, what are the negative aspects of the culture. That is how I would answer that question, because that will then talk about the effects on recruitment and retention. Because I can certainly say that in terms of the last organization I worked with, there were some real positives, but there were also some real negatives that I would have been able to talk about. And if we looked at the level of staff turnover in the organization, a lot of it was as a direct result of negative aspects of culture. So it really does come out to show. The second area, evaluate the ways in which organizations provide flexibilities and changes to working practices. This is a really important area, and this is an area where you can talk about your own organization. You can also talk about the wider, what's going on in the wider world. One thing I would recommend, another thing worth Googling to have a look at, and again, I'm putting it in chat, or at least I would put it in chat if I could spell it correctly. The concept of hybrid working. This is a very, very much a 2021 thing. They started talking about it in 2020, but it's coming to life in 2021. And hybrid working, as I'm sure you know, is the mixture of working at home and working in the office. It's this simple concept, as we've talked about before, that work is starting to become something you do, not somewhere you go. It's becoming a huge, huge issue. It is reckoned by various studies that have been done that people who are applying for jobs with new organizations expect to be given the opportunity to work from home possibly 30% of the time, so maybe 1 to 2 days a week. That is what is now an expectation. We start talking about things like work-life balance. So you need to start thinking not just about things like, maternity and paternity leave. That is part of work-life balance. But also there's things like, a really interesting one in France. If you work in any government body in France, or any bit of the government, you are not allowed to email your employees outside of working hours. So you're not allowed to email them at weekends. You are not allowed to email them in the evenings. And this is down to the fact of the realization that we all, or most of us, have mobile cell phones, which also get email on, and we cannot help ourselves. If it beeps at us and says there's an email, we will go, no, I'm not looking at it, but you do. So it's about, actually the government putting in legislation in France for government employees that when people are not at work, they are not at work and you should leave them alone. It's about making sure they get their work-life balance, because it's an understanding that the nature of work has changed. When I first started working 30 plus years ago, when I left work, there was nothing I could do until the next day. We didn't even have computers when I first started working. Well, we did have computers, but we didn't have desktop computers. We had mainframes, but I didn't have a computer. We used faxes and ridiculous things like that. So I could not physically really carry on work at home. My boss could not phone me in the car to have a discussion on a hands-free cell phone. You couldn't do it. So all of these things, how do we make sure that we are supporting work-life balance for our people? What policies do we have at home, at our place of work? Do we have unwritten rules that we don't contact people outside of working hours? Or do we expect people, for example, to take their cell phone when they go on vacation? And it's a really interesting one. Different organizations look at it in different ways. So what flexibilities has your organization brought in? Has it moved away from having a rigid work scheduling of saying people must work from 8 till 4? And have they changed it to say you must work 8 hours a day or 7.5 hours a day? You must be available between the hours of 11 and 2. Those are the core hours. And outside of that, as long as you do the other 5 hours, we don't mind when you do it. Things like that. You see things like this in organizations. So what flexibilities are there? What changes to working practices are there, both in your organization and in the wider work area? So 3.1, there are some very specific models to look at. You want to look at Charles Handy, you want to look at Edgar Schein. I personally would look at both, but I'll leave it up to you. You want to look at least one of them. Then when you get to the second part, the ways in which organizations provide flexibility, again, which is the assessment criteria 3.2, there are no right or wrong answers. You need to talk about your own organization. You need to talk about maybe what are the trends within the country in which you are based, and so on and so on. So that covers off what I wanted to talk about today. And I've also been influenced by some of the challenges, some of the areas that you have struggled with, and you've also raised one or two concerns regarding wider things that I will be taking up myself with the college, and hopefully we can start to make some progress on that. So, are there any other aspects of this assignment 712, that you want to raise and discuss? Please concentrate on the content of the assignment, because the other aspects, such as the submission and things, as I've said, I have no involvement in that. All I can ever do is sort of pass it on. So this really is your opportunity to raise anything that you wanted to raise as a concern, any questions you've got, etc. And if you don't have any questions or any concerns, then that is also perfectly acceptable. And if that is the case, you are very welcome to leave the call. I don't mind in the slightest. Sorry, I've got, The Google reference, the actual Google reference. Yeah, give me a second. The actual, as you can see here, Charles Handy organizational culture, or you could spell it with a Z. So I will put the URL into chat for you. Just saves you having to do it yourself. That's the first one. That's the one for Charles Handy. And then the second one. Edgar Schein. And again, as you can see, the first thing that comes out, Edgar Schein's model of organizational culture. As I said, they are possibly the two best known. Well, you can't see because I'm not sharing my screen. So you now have the two Google links for those references, for one for Charles Handy and the second one for Edgar Schein. Like I say, I would personally recommend using both of them because I think they're two very good, very useful, very interesting models, but it's a matter of personal choice.
Can I ask a question, please?
Of course you can.
Okay. It's about 2.2. Identify approaches and methodologies to support the requirement and selection of staff, external candidates, and the impact on current legislation and organizational requirements. That part, the impact, what does it mean?
Right.
What does it mean? Okay.
So how does your selection process and the legal position affect candidates? Now, a simple example, again, I can only ever give you UK examples because that's the environment that I'm most familiar with. In the UK, to work in the UK, and of course this has changed because of Brexit, but what you used to have, you had to have either a British passport, it used to be a passport of another country in the EU, or a visa from the Home Office, which enabled you to work in this country. You had to have one of those three. If you didn't, I am not allowed to recruit you. So that is the impact of current legislation on the selection of staff. I have to make sure that anyone I employ is legally entitled to work in the country. It could be that again, if you look at the UK, I mentioned minimum wage earlier. We have a minimum wage in the UK. You have, if you are between 16 and 18, the minimum wage is set at a certain level. If you are between 18 and 21, it is set slightly higher. And then when you hit 21, you become eligible for the adult rate. So that is another way in which current legislation will impact on the selection of staff, because I have to ensure that I am paying those rates. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. No problem at all. My pleasure. Okay. Well, as I said earlier, if you have If you don't have any other questions, you don't have to stay on the call. I'm quite happy to finish early. I, however, will be here until 5 o'clock. So if any of you leave the call and then think, oh, I meant to ask such and such, just drop back in because I will still be here. So it's entirely up to you how you spend the time between now and 5 o'clock. It will be UK time, which I think is 7 o'clock your time. So, but anyway, how you spend the next 25 minutes, you're very welcome to stay on the call. You're very welcome to leave the call. But again, if you want to return between now and the hour, you are very, very welcome to. As I said, I will still be here. I'm not going anywhere. So. Oh.
Are we finished?
Yeah, as I said, I will be here till 5 o'clock. But if you have no more questions, you're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay. It's entirely up to you. So let me say we are finished unless you want to stay and ask me anything else.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem at all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor.
No problem at all. Take care. I will speak with you soon.